So hi, I'm Melanie Sumner. Thank you for that excellent introduction, Katie. My slides will be available online on Notist, noti.st/melsumner/H0PLCQ. So yes, I'm a senior software engineer at LinkedIn. I am on the Ember core team. I am a judge for the CSS Design Awards. And before all of that, I was actually an intelligence analyst in the US Navy. Yes, that means I was a spy. It's not as glamorous as you might think. I was mostly inside buildings, but with no windows. So my situation has dramatically improved, I think. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, Melanie R. Sumner. I absolutely love to share pictures of my life and love to see pictures of other people's lives on Instagram. And also, if you're into the more business side of things, you can find me on GitHub and on Notist as Mel Sumner. I would have the same handle everywhere, but turns out there's another Melanie Sumner. She's a writer, which is pretty great because I have like a doppelganger who's an accomplished author. So we just can I don't know, share accomplishments. And not really, but it's pretty awesome. Anyway, one of the ways that we introduce ourselves in meetings at work, since I work for LinkedIn, is to share something about ourselves that is not on our LinkedIn profile, which is a really fun icebreaker. And hopefully you can learn something new. For me, it's usually one of two things. First, it's either that I met my husband while playing a video game. We were both playing Final Fantasy XI. He was a ninja, I was a white mage, match made in heaven. The other is that one of our favorite video games is called Portal. And we named our cats actually after characters in the game. On the left is Atlas and the other one is Peabody. They are ridiculously photogenic, so my Instagram feed is mostly them. Today I want to talk about this idea of shift left. We'll talk about how people learned how to code, how pattern documentation should work, or how I think it should work anyway, and how to make sure that your documentation is up to par, and how you can kind of adopt this shift left mindset, because I think this will really help improve the quality of our code bases and prevent regressions in our code before they even happen. Additionally, I think it will help us level up in our craft, in what we do as web developers, as engineers. I am an excitable person in general, especially when I'm talking about something I really enjoy doing. And one day my son brought home some coding homework and I was excited. I was dangerously excited. But you know, I tried to play it cool. Since he was born, I've had programming books just, you know, around casually. No pressure. You can read them if you want to. I mean, they're for me, right? But you hope you won't pick them up, right? So he brought home this homework and I'm super excited about it. All my dreams were coming true, right? Anyway, his homework was kind of like that Lightbot code game. I don't know if you played it, but you can learn about procedures and loops and conditionals while you help a little character move around the map and jump up on things and turn lights on and off. I helped him get through his homework, but he's 13 and it was homework. So he wasn't as excited as I was hoping he would be. I didn't cry bitter tears of disappointment, but I did start to think about how I learned how to code, which of course led me to think about how other people learned how to code. And then of course, that led me to think about the different kinds of learning paths there are and how that really can affect our work. So what about you? How did you learn? Do you remember? Maybe it was a hobby that you turned into a career. That's what it was for me. It was coding was my hobby. And I thought, oh, I want to do this for a living. I like this way better than being in the military, right? Maybe you got a degree in computer science. Maybe this is your second career and you went to a boot camp and that's how you learned. Or maybe you just decided this from day one and you're self-taught. All of these ways are equally viable, but they are unavoidably incomplete when we're building for the web. If the past 31 years of the web have taught us anything, it should be that change is a constant, and any learning path that you choose is going to inevitably leave something out. And this is especially true, I think, when it comes to crafting accessible, performant experience for the web. Continuous learning is an absolute must, and I don't mean in a theoretical sense. There's always something new to learn for front-end web development, and excellence goes far beyond lines of code. And to be clear, I don't think that there's only one way to do this. I think it really depends on what part of the stack you're focused on, how you learned how to code, and what your interests and goals are. For example, if you have a computer science degree, but you're building UI components, you'll probably have to do some additional study in user experience and design. If you're a bootcamp trained developer who finds themselves learning tooling, you're probably going to have to study a little more computer science to improve the tools that you create. And no matter what kind of education you've gotten, you're going to likely need to study accessibility and assistive technology, because that's not really included in any curricula. Another example, or an example of this in real life, is in soccer or football, if you name things correctly. I know, naming things is hard, it's fine. Anyway, players will usually develop the basic skill sets of the game: endurance, ball handling, and game strategy. And then they'll find kind of their niche. Do they like to play offense or do they like to play defense? And then an area of the pitch, left, right, or center. As a result, you can end up with different play styles or career tracks, if you will. I've identified 3 of them. There's a kind of player that develops as an all-around player on either offense or defense, but can play in any area of the pitch. Someone like Thomas Wheeler, who plays offense, but can do it from any area of the pitch: left, center, or right. His specialty is finding whatever space exists and then playing offense. Sometimes, even after a player has trained for their niche, a coach can ask them to switch things up. So you get a left back like Gareth Bale becoming a left wing, switching from defense to offense. And yet other times, players will develop their niche and stay there no matter what team they're playing for. Fernando Torres, or club they're playing for. Fernando Torres was a striker for his entire career. No matter what kind of developer you are, think about the position you're playing right now and further develop your skill set accordingly. Some percentage of your time must either involve deeper knowledge of the niche you are already in, or balancing out your skill set by increasing your knowledge of the domains that will be affected by your work. Here's my tip. Think beyond the words of the task you've been given. There are a lot of other things that we should be automatically applying to our work, and excellence cannot be spelled out in a Jira ticket. Let's look at this painting, The Milkmaid by Vermeer. Now let's imagine this is a Jira ticket, right? Like a normal Jira ticket. It'll have an epic. It'll have a story, user story. I'll have some subtasks, and it will have story points. We'll give it 5 because, paintings are hard. Let's look at the subtasks. Gather materials, paint the picture, bring the picture to the gallery. But does that really capture what's going on in this painting? In the subtasks, it didn't have use perspective accurately, or paint a scene that's vivid and evocative, or use superb lighting techniques to create depth. Like, those things are just expected when you're an artist. Well, there's not a direct one-to-one parallel since we have user experience designers and visual designers to support us now as developers. I still think the point holds up. There are parts of our expertise that we must bring to the task every day. These are things that should not have to be spelled out for us every single time. But I do think that they're easy to forget when we're in the hustle and bustle of the everyday and we should have shipped that feature like last week. So to help us remember, we can do what doctors do. We can use checklists. For example, I've got a few things you can keep in mind when you are doing, if you're a UI developer and you're next working on a UI, here's some things to think about. Would you, as a user, enjoy this UX? Could you perform this workflow with your eyes closed? Like keyboard navigation, if you had to listen to it, could you do that? Do you know what the accessibility DOM looks like? If you blurred your vision and you looked at the screen, could you still tell where the focus outlines were as you tabbed through the interface? If you pulled this up on your mobile device, what would happen if you had the accessibility settings turned on? Or would it perform well? Do you know what this looks like in high contrast mode? For every feature that comes in, every feature request that's assigned to you, do a little bit of a self-check. Do you know how this new feature will affect user experience? I think so far we've heard some really powerful stories about performance on lower end devices, on lower end data plans, on remote locations. And it's really encouraging or reinvigorating, I guess, to really just think about those things in our everyday web development. And I want to encourage you to especially think about this the next time that you start to engage with a designer on a new feature. One way to do this is to find common shared understanding through UI patterns. When you think about what's a pattern, what comes to mind? So typical pattern, right? We have some basic examples that show you how to use it. We have some variations. So, you know, these cases use it a little bit differently. We have some way to copy and paste the code so you can use it in your own IDE quickly. And like an example of it rendered so you can see what it would look like. And while this is pretty typical, I think they're missing some essentials. Now, maybe you're thinking, yes, but Melanie, this is enough for me to ship my code. This is enough for me to get my job done today. I don't think that's enough. Here's why. Maybe you think it's someone else's job to consider performance or accessibility, which can help us rationalize, really that kind of thinking can help us rationalize any number of challenges that we face on a given day. Not great management or general accessibility or performance ignorance, or sometimes even just like, but I just don't want to, right? Our own laziness. We have to battle those things like all the time. The thing is, the most concise framework code in the whole world won't matter if we're not thinking about the future code that we're creating on a daily basis. The patterns we create should be beautiful. Like that's something we should expect. They should be easy to use for developers with step-by-step instructions. Like how to install them, how to add the markup, and some basic styling even maybe. I don't know. Do what works for you. But if it's missing essential information, it could be unusable for a significant portion of your user base. But we can confirm this by doing some math. What does an optimal DOM tree look like? Less than 1,500 nodes, max depth 32 nodes, no parent node with more than 60 nodes. Now, not only will the suboptimal experience feel kind of sluggish, which really that should be enough on its own for us to revisit implementation, but in some instances, it can make our screen readers crash. And if we're working on any kind of code that needs to scale globally, we really need to be aware of this. So what are we missing out on? I think we need to not accept the quick answer as the complete answer. It's really, really fantastic that we can find solutions quickly on places like Stack Overflow, but a solution, it's not enough. Patterns should tell us what to do and give us some reasoning as to why. This will help our brains with long-term learning. Patterns should also include anti-patterns, what not to do and why not to do them. By investing the effort to create patterns that are the complete answer, we're giving ourselves the tools to craft better solutions for our users. Here's the thing. If a pattern or anything is missing information about things like performance and accessibility, then it's not complete yet. This is not meant to make anybody feel bad, but just get you to think a little bit more. It should be a signal that we're just not finished solving the problem yet. And don't stop till you get there. I've seen too many features that need a complete rewrite later because they didn't think about accessibility or performance until after the fact. If you think about these things as core requirements, though, you'll have a better MVP instead of more technical debt to pay off later. By equipping ourselves with a more holistic view of our digital products, we're enabling developers to stop issues sooner. We're enabling ourselves as developers to stop issues sooner. We can prevent bugs before they happen. We can increase the percentage of our code base that doesn't regress in the first place. Do you know how many bugs your product has? Do you know how many accessibility specific or performance specific bugs your product has? Who do you talk to when you have a concern about either one of these things? What is your process when you're handed a design that's not performant or accessible? When you discover that, what is the process in place at your place of business to do something about that? How do you measure performance in your application? Do you know? If you don't know these things, you need to find out, because audits can help us with these things, but they're only part of the answer. And if we wait till the audit, we've waited until it's too late. And this is why I want us to think about this kind of shift left mentality now. I want to encourage us to use template linters, to look for accessibility and performance in testing, to use performance benchmarking tools. We have these tools as developers that can help us before we even ship any code to production, before we even commit code. We have these tools to help us. We need to do that. And I think, like, for me, this is really big. So I want to really reiterate this. Preventing regressions before they happen. It's less frustration for us, and it's just good business value. Because we have template linters like ESLint and Ember template lint to help us statically analyze our template code. And in these days, we even have it in our IDEs, thanks to language servers. Because I work in Ember template lint, it's in Ember language server, which is supported with VS Code and IntelliJ. And I'm sure other languages have these as well, but like we can know these things. And with these linters, we can analyze our code. We can customize what we analyze. We can even fix our issues through linting tools. But why else should we use tools like this? Because it's okay not to know everything. It's okay to accept that there's things you don't know yet, and depend on your tools to back you up and help you out. Linters can provide you with the support for some things that you might not know yet. For example, did you know that you don't always need to add the alt text, but it always needs to be there? If the image is for presentation use only, use the rule of presentation or none along with an empty alt attribute on the image itself. If the image is essential, then a valid alt text or appropriate alt text should be provided. Template linting rules like require valid alt text in Ember template lint can help you, and not just you, your whole team, no matter what their skill level, no matter where they are in the world. you're expanding your knowledge to everyone. Or did you know that you need to associate labels with inputs? So you need to have used the label element or ARIA label, or if you're doing a search, ARIA labeled by plus the button. Again, there are rules that will help catch this issue before you even commit a single line of code. Pretty cool. By actively using a linter, we benefit from actionable insights that we can use to make our work better in the moment that we're doing the work. We don't have to wait till later. We don't have to wait for an audit. We can do it while we're developing that piece of code or that feature. And we can increase our own confidence in what we produce. But this isn't the only way to get actionable insights. Performance analysis tools can also give us these. Chris Selden at LinkedIn created a tool called Tracerbench out of a desire to have more accurate performance analysis through macro benchmarking. Developers can struggle to find and analyze performance regressions in a way that would allow them to make iterative changes within their local development environment, especially if working in an app that's scaled for global use. You're only working on a tiny piece of the code. And sometimes, how do you know if that's really going to perform well or not? Macro benchmarking is about holistically evaluating an app's performance. Performance at load time needs to consider a lot of interdependent, concurrent things. And this is just the sort of benchmarking that Tracerbench focuses on. It allows you to reliably test the performance implications of a change to your app by running a series of automated Chrome traces, collecting a data set of performance metrics. Not only does this provide low variance performance data, it also introduces more statistical rigor in the benchmarking process. It encourages peer review by packaging a runnable benchmark. So no more, but it's fast on my machine. And it's not just our apps that benefit from this. In the Ember framework, we've used Tracerbench to ensure that new framework features don't cause performance regressions in existing applications. This is important in Ember because of our commitment to backwards compatibility. Proactively generating more elevated quality code before you push your code means that we can reduce the number of JIRA tickets that we have, which will give you more time for your next big idea. I think this is the best reason for using these kinds of tools. You're giving your future self the gift of time. Instead of working on bugs, you're working on a different feature, a new feature. That's pretty cool. So I have a challenge alert. Mia, this is Mia here. And Mia wants to know what will happen if you run a linter on your code base today. Do you know? Try it and see. That's the challenge. Try a linter out. See what happens. Next time you're in your code base, run it and see what kind of issue it reports. Because audits will reveal these issues and more that we, don't have a way to test for yet. So why not fix the ones we know how to fix now? We've started working on ways to test for common accessibility failures. That's something that hasn't existed yet. As we work out how to put these automated tests into place, every developer will be armed with better decision-making support from the moment they start writing their code. But we still have a long way to go. So we need to use the tools that we have now to fix these things. Now, I know we're focusing on performance today, but I generally talk about accessibility. And if you've heard me talk before, you've heard me refer to accessibility as the final frontier of the web. And here's why. Here's why I think that's true. Because intent matters. What is this designed to do? What's the purpose of it? And accessible interfaces are ones that can be used in the way they were designed or intended to be used, but we still don't have a really great way beyond the roles that currently exist, a set list of values. We don't really have a way to say, but here's the intent of this piece of code. How we use the web has gotten a lot more complex. So we need to be able to say, but This is what I intend for this. And until we have that, we're going to have gaps in our automated testing tools. Until we have had to really look at the full scope of the accessibility test automation problem that we face right now, we probably also won't be willing to say this is how you do it and this is how you don't. So once we start figuring out better ways to declare intent, we will streamline our process a lot more. And this is what I mean about the need to shift left. Don't wait for the audit. Move linting and performance analysis into the development workflow. So usually it's like design, develop, test, audit. Move it from the audit, back over, shift it left into the developer workflow. I genuinely believe that by understanding the needs of users, especially users with assistive technology, we will understand the clear path forward for the web. And we'll also increase our holistic understanding of what our code needs to look like to create the next generation of user experiences for every device. Yeah, I know, it's a pun, I'm sorry. Here's the thing. To me, accessible code is performant code, is valid semantic code. And this kind of code has a higher degree of quality to it, an elevated level of craft. Whether you started writing code knowing about these kind of quality standards or not, it should be your eventual goal. It's good to have goals. I want you to go home and try something. Oh, wait, we're all at home. So later, tomorrow, Thursday, try something. Set a meeting time on your calendar, an alarm on your phone, something that allows you to set up a little weekly check-in. Take a little time for self-reflection. Check in with yourself. Did you have a today I learned moment this week? If you didn't, figure out why. Challenge yourself to make this idea happen. Keeping the today I learned mindset is essential for success in our field. Maybe you do this by working with performance analysis tools like Tracerbench. Maybe you do this by starting your day with a code challenge. Maybe you do this by learning how to use assistive technology. Or maybe you do this by reading some spec. Maybe you do this by thinking about what spec doesn't exist yet, but needs to. Until the web as a platform is more stable, we'll be continually required to grow our knowledge skill, our knowledge set, our knowledge base, and we need to contribute to specification that doesn't exist yet, but needs to. I hope that I'm not the one breaking this news to you. Sorry if I am. This will be your today you learned, if it is. But our chosen career path requires three things: passion, patience, and persistence. We have to figure these things out. We have to look at what's already been done and learned from it, and we must decide where to go next. The thing is, conference talks can be really inspiring. They call on us to imagine the future, and they show us the bleeding edge of tech and inspire us to reach for excellence, which I hope I've done some of that in this talk. But what happens when we go back to work the next day? Figuring out how to change that conference inspiration into reality can be super challenging, because reality, as we're learning, is often a bummer. The great news is, at least where the web is concerned, we can influence that reality. Accessibility is a journey. Performance is also a journey. So let's take that journey together. I want to thank you for the gift of your time today. I hope to hear from you. You can find me on Twitter or on the Ember Discord chat server. It would be great to see you there. Melanie, you can just, find me there. I'd love to hear what you thought. Thank you.